Hey there, it's Blair here at Time Trades. Thanks for joining me this weekend. This is your weekly analysis video for Sunday, December 17th. And today I'm going to be changing things up a little bit. I'm going to be switching my primary analysis symbol to NDX from NQ. The reason primarily is I don't want those bumps that happen in the price series every time there's a contract roll in the continuous contract of NQ futures. NDX is pretty much the exact same price behavior, but without those occasional gaps in the price series. So that's really all it's about is I just want less variables, less to think about, less to worry about. So we're going to be using NDX going forward. So what I've done here is I've ported over the active forecast arrows from NQ over to NDX. We'll start as usual by providing an assessment of the last forecast. The last forecast from last week basically had an up segment in this series here. So basically, I had last week in effect going up, but at a lower price. So I give myself maybe a B for this one. Certainly the biggest mistake in this forecast has been from December 1st going down to December 11th. That obviously was a big miss. But I think for the last week, I give myself probably a B for this one, just because the price level was up, but I pretty much had the movement and the direction correct for the last 5 trading days. So that's all good, but what is going to be happening next? So I'm going to review a lot of the same content that I have been in the last couple of weeks and update that for you. So let's start by taking a look at the what I've been calling the eclipse shadow period. But I'm just gonna, that's a bit of a mouthful. I'm just gonna call this a springboard. So I've got the springboard time series, time periods identified here on the chart. Okay. And we're in the middle of a springboard right now. So let's go back and look at the past when these springboards happen and examine why I think they're important and what I think we can expect going forward into early 2024. All right, so right now we're at a springboard and we're in the middle of Venus interval 2 because it's, I believe it's a combination of these springboards, which are based on lunar movements, and the Venus intervals, which are based on the Venus-Earth synodic cycle. That combination is important. So as we scroll back in time here, what we're looking for really is a springboard that happens during an interval 2 or an interval 5, because that's when Venus geocentric speed is fastest relative to Earth. Okay, so we can see this springboard here happened in interval 6, and we got a nice little pop up. But that's kind of typical of interval 6 behavior. This is where we tend to see topping type behavior. So let's keep going backwards here. The springboard before that was right at the start of a Venus interval 5. And this is when Venus kind of turns the corner, reaches maximum Western elongation. Or sorry, in this case, it's number 5. So this is 180 degrees opposite of max Western elongation. Okay, so Venus starts to approach Earth with maximum speed, and a springboard right here back in December and January of 2023, in December of 2022, you can see we got a springboard here right at the low, right at the border of Venus interval 5, and that really kicked off the bull market here. So excellent signal here from this springboard, and this is exactly the kind of stuff I'm looking for. We can also see another springboard that we had here in Venus interval 2. Again, these are lunar eclipse shadow periods, and this resulted in a blast off into the end of interval 2 that ended pretty much the instant that Venus entered interval 3. So another very, very good signal here. Here's a springboard that fired short from an interval 6, and that really kicked off the 2022 bear market. So there's a few more here. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go over them all, but I do want to scroll back to 2019 and show you another very good springboard off in interval 2. It's this one here off of this dump that ended right around Christmas 2018. And then we got a springboard early in interval 2, and most of the rest of interval 2 turned into a big bull move. So if we turn on our Venus interval law of vibration intervals, okay, so we can break this down into law of vibration intervals: 1 to 5, 2, 5, 1/3, 1/2, 2/3, 3/4. We can see that this move that kicked off here ended right at the 3/4 mark of that interval 2. And this is another thing I found about Venus intervals, is they do tend to subdivide very nicely into law of vibration intervals. Okay, so if we fast forward to today, the situation today is right now we're in a Venus interval 2. I've really, I think, underestimated the bullish power of that interval 2. Everything has been amplified to the upside going into this, and we're right at 1/3 of the way through. So as we look ahead, we've got some key milestones in this interval. We're halfway at January 10th, and we hit 2/3 February 6th and 3/4 on February 20th. Okay. So the bias needs to be to the upside, basically until we're proven wrong. So the trend is up, the momentum is up. We've got a springboard here that's about to fire. So how do we update our forecast based on this information? So let's go and take a look and make sure, let's review our declination events, and let's also review our speed index. So I've got the Planetary Lines script here. This received a major update this week. So if you have not updated your Planetary Line script, I strongly recommend you do. It is much, much, much faster. And we've added support for Jupiter in there as well. So for this configuration, I'm using the Planetary Line scaled to $1,048 per 360 degrees of longitude. I've also done a detailed update of the user guide in time trades that's accessed from the web application. And it goes into a detailed example of how you can set the dollars per degrees of longitude and scale your chart, and a few techniques and a detailed example using SPX on how to apply those techniques. All right, so be sure to check out the latest version of the script and also the user guide. There's lots of details there. So anyways, for the purposes of this analysis, these are the settings we're using right now. We've got the speed index turned on. That is this teal colored line here. And you can see that we've got an inflection point here in the speed index. It's going to be declining. Now, again, for a quick review, the way we use this is we look at inflection points in the speed index because they tend to correlate with inflection points in price. And you can see how that happened here around December 5th, December 6th, and boom, we got a big pump up. We're at another inflection point here, and this is the reason for the arrow pointing down. This is basically why I believe we're going to see a little bit of a correction here during this springboard time period. But then after that, we're going to see a big pump up as the interval 2, the combination of the interval 2 and the springboard takes effect. All right, so let's go and take a look at our declination events, because we also know that declination events do tend to create inversions in the speed index. So we had one declination event here, December 14th. That was a low in the lunar declination. That does not seem to have created an inversion, so we're going to delete that one from our chart. That's also indicated by the blue line. Blue lines are declination lows in the moon. And the next declination event we have, of course, is winter solstice, which is the sun reaching a declination low. And Mercury, which is currently retrograde, will also reach its minimum speed around here. So that's an interesting day. After that, Mercury reaches a declination high on December 31st. That's not a trading day, so the next trading day after that is January 2nd. And of course, in between all this, we see the speed index making a low here. So the way I'm going to update the forecast is I'm going to obviously shift it up, because the price is much more bullish than I had anticipated. This old green box we can delete, and I will explain why this box is where it is. Okay, so basically we have sun declination events. I want to catch kind of the end of the springboard time period, and I also want to catch the end of this speed index low over here. And that basically defines the start and the end of our dip buying zone, if you want to call it that. So this is kind of our time target. Price target is set based on magic levels here. We've got 2 orange magic levels. And also, if we turn on, let's turn on some of the planetary lines, and then we can see what these are telling us with respect to price levels. Now, mirroring is turned on, so this adds a whole whack of lines to the script. So I hope this doesn't make you mad, but we can see here that we've got a bit of a cluster of planetary lines down here. So I kind of like this as a support zone for price if it gets through this orange magic level down here, right? So that's really the rationale for this target box. And then, of course, afterwards, I do think we're going to see a very strong pump coming out of here. Let's take a look at our law of vibration lines here. Here they are. So we've got a law of vibration line here at 50% and at 2/3. So I really think that coming out of here, we're gonna see a pump up to at least the 50% area on January 10th. So let's go and update our path. I always struggle to find the path tool here. Here it is. Okay, so I do think we see this go down into and correct into this green target box for the reasons mentioned, primarily the speed index. And we've got some very good support here around the planetary levels and also the magic levels. So we're going to just drop that right in the middle of our target box. And then we're going to see a pretty strong pump, I believe, because of this combined effect of the springboard and the Venus interval 2 into January 10th or so. At least that's the 50% mark of that Venus interval 2. So I really think we're going to be seeing all-time highs up here. I'm not going to be, I think, well, maybe we can be intentional about where we put this price-wise. If we do bounce off of this area here, which is a combination of Sun and Mercury, and then I think we can, and also we've got Earth as well, then I think we can target the opposite Sun and red is Mars, yellow is Sun, blue is Earth. So we can target this cluster up here as a price target up here. So let's put that in for now. And of course, we may update it. I'm not going to pay too much attention to time up here, but let's just drop that there. And there's our updated forecast that takes into account a bunch of different variables, including this very interesting lunar eclipse shadow period or springboard period, which I do think is going to boost us up to new all-time highs. So your Christmas gift to yourself is going to be hopefully a very viable dip. And then that should pay off in the next couple of weeks. That's the forecast going forward. Remember, it's just a forecast, not a promise. Manage your risk. Anything can happen in the market. But based on the astro cycles, that's my best forecast in terms of where I think we're going to go. All right, so with that, we are going to just quickly flip over to time trades, take a look at what the machine learning is telling us. And one of the things that I neglected to share was the cluster of pivots over here around, this is the 22nd, and then this is SPX. We've got a cluster of pivots across a number of major symbols in the 22nd to 26th range. So we can go and take a look at NDX. On NDX, this is showing up on the 27th. And on, let's take a look at the Dow. What does it look like on the Dow? We've got a pivot over here on the 28th. So all of those pivots, basically from the 22nd to the 28th, are within this green target box. So that's another reason for putting the dates for this target box where they are. And I think a little correction here would be healthy. We've got some very good support levels on which we can expect to see a bounce. Hey there, it's Blair. I'm back and we're talking about Bitcoin, gold, and the dollar. We're going to start here with Bitcoin. And what I'm showing here are those Springboard time zones in orange, okay? And if we scroll back here first, let me just clean up this chart a little bit. I'm going to hide the planetary line so it's easier to see. So you can scroll back and take a look at how these Springboard time zones behave. Look at this one. Wow. Back in December, like this is the same time, of course, that it occurred for stocks, and Bitcoin just started pumping right after that springboard. So you can see why I call it a springboard. We're going to turn on the time trade script here, and you can see how when these align with Venus interval 2 and 5, it is super strong. Okay, so that's why I'm excited right now, because we're in a springboard right now. We're in Venus interval 2. And I think we're setting up for another strong pump here. So what is the time trades machine learning telling us? We can go over and take a look at this. We've got a few data issues here in the data feed from 12 data, but we have a pivot December 28th. I believe this is going to be a pivot low. Okay, and then I think we're going to see a pump coming up out of that. And then we see some other pivots over here, January 6th, January 4th. So the way I think this is going to play out, I think the December 28th area is going to be a low. We can come back to TradingView and take a look at this. December 28th is over here. It's just after the completion of the springboard time frame. So if that is indeed a low, we can turn on the planetary lines and take a look at what that means. But so before I do that, I'm going to hide time trades. And let me just review with you the settings here. I'm using 5520 as the scaling factor. That seems to create some good results. Let me just show you first the speed index, because the speed index is the same across all symbols, but it's good to see how this lines up uh, with price. And you can see here the speed index, we just had a high, and the speed index is coming down to a low around the new year, December 31st, January 1st. And then it rapidly accelerates into January 13th, 14th. Okay. So we've got the springboard period ending, and a few days after that, we've got the speed index rapidly accelerating. I think this is a recipe for a real good pump in Bitcoin. I think the trick is going to be, don't, chop up your account in the springboard period. The actual springboard periods themselves do tend to be a little choppy, with the exception of the most recent one over here in June. That seems to be the exception that proves the rule. Most of the time they are pretty choppy, and the action happens after they finish. Okay. So that's what I think is going to happen in this case. So if we go and turn on the planets in the planetary line script, let's turn off the speed index, and we can turn on, a bunch of the helio planets, which I like to use, and we can see what that is telling us. We can see that now. This is one of the things I love with the planetary index, is that when we get these vertical lines here, this is Mercury passing 0 degrees Aries in helio. Okay, so orange is Mercury helio. You can see how elliptic Mercury's orbit is. If the orbit were perfectly circular, this line would be straight. But you can see how sometimes it moves fast, sometimes it moves slow. That's because it has one of the most elliptical orbits in the system. And you can see here, when Mercury helio crosses 0 Aries, we often get major pivots. And you can see that's exactly what happened down here in September as well, right? And you can use the planetary line script yourself and go back in time and do your own research and see if this holds, right? In this case here, we got what looks like a pivot high in March of 2023, okay? Down here, we got a pivot low in September of 2023, okay? So I think we may have just had a minor pivot high over here in December of 2023. And I think we're in kind of correction mode. We can gauge how important some of these planetary lines are by going back in time and seeing where this move started. This move started down here off of red, which is Mars, and yellow, which is Sun. So one of the things that seems to happen is the line where the move starts is often the line where the move ends. So it looks like we may have seen the completion of this move up from the September low. I think we're taking a bit of a breather now. If we turn on mirroring, and this will double the number of lines, so be prepared. Now, we see Mercury coming down here acting as resistance, which is also really cool. And you can see how Mercury acted as resistance many times before. So often breakthroughs of that descending Mercury helio do translate into big moves. So I think this is a time to be very cautious on the long side on Bitcoin. Confirmation would be a breakthrough of either Mercury helio descending here, or this combination of Mars and Sun. So a close above there would be good confirmation. Now, all potential targets in the early January timeframe. could be up here around, again, going back to our theory of Mars and Sun being areas of move completion, could be up here at 45, okay? It could be up here at 48. It could even be up here at 50, 51, right? So this is what's really neat about planetary lines and using those in your trading is that they are everywhere, even at all-time highs. A lot of technical indicators break down at all-time highs because there's, nothing to anchor, nothing in the past, no past price to anchor your indicators to, but planetary lines are always there. All right, so that's Bitcoin. Let's go and take a quick look at the dollar and gold. This is gold. We're going to start with the dollar quickly. So one of the dollar had a very solid drop underneath this 1x1. I think this move is going to continue until it touches this descending 1x1 here. So this is anchored to, I think, one of the all-time highs in the dollar. Could be an all-time high, maybe not. September 2022. So these are some significant lines. And I think this is going to continue down. We do have a 1x1 cross coming up over here in early January, December 28th, December 29th. So that's something to be aware of. We could get a major pivot around there in the same way that we got a major pivot up here in this area with the last 1x1 cross. Let's go take a look at what Time Trades is telling us about the dollar DXY. Time Trades has a very big probability of a pivot on January 8th. Now, January 8th is interesting because that's right near 50% of this of this Venus interval, which I believe is January 10th. So that could be an area of a pivot for the dollar. So if we go down here, January 8th, maybe it gets as low as 100.3. That would be an interesting spot, a wick down to the even 100 level, right at this 1x1. That would be perfect. All right, so that's not a forecast. It's just, fitting the pieces together, making some observations about the importance of this 1x1 and the lower 1x1 here, and combining it with some of the machine learning forecasts out of the Time Trades web app. Now, this becomes relevant when we take a look at gold. If we go over here and take a look at gold, gold has been behaving, it's been following my arrow, which almost never happens, but hey, that's great. We're coming up to the 1/8 part of this orange dotted cycle here. So these orange dots, if you're new, are anchored to this high to low cycle, which has been very effective so far. And one of the things that we see at the 1/8 mark of each of these is a bit of a counter trend rally. So we've seen a counter trend rally. The last time it went from, 1788 up here to 1876 before resuming in the primary trend direction. So we may have seen that counter trend rally here as we popped up to 2151 and had that counter trend correction, I should say, not rally down to 1993. And now we're resuming the move in the primary trend direction. And maybe it will continue moving up along this Ganfan here, okay? So something to be aware of, watch these dates. And also we do have that big pivot coming up in the dollar January 10th. So if that is indeed a pivot low, then we can expect gold to continue up until the January 10th area. So that's it for me. We've covered the dollar, gold, and Bitcoin here. So by all means, protect your capital, trade safe, and good luck trading this week. We will be back with a quick holiday shortened video next week. And also some more product updates, I'm sure, as I look forward to delivering some more innovations for you guys over the next week or so. All right, take care, and we'll talk to you later. Bye now.